Testing 1, 2. All right. Let's get some music going. All right. So I'm still trying to get this all situated. I'm still learning how to set everything up. And I'm still learning. Hello. Give me a second. I'm checking my settings here. Probably me. Oh, yeah, it's set to my speakers. Hold on. All right, try me now. Can you hear me, Gother?
Yeah.
Awesome. There you are. I am going to maximize on play. So this is kind of what I've been working on the last few weeks. Busted my ass off for it. And the idea is, since I can't really draw well, and I'm still learning how to animate and do other stuff, I really want to push forward the aspect of my channel where we're animating our adventures and making it easier for people who don't want to watch us, sit and argue over math rocks for 3 hours. you know. And
Yep.
so, I really want to see what you think about this and how I get this all started. I'm gonna go ahead and just start reading through it, and I'll try to use this as voiceover work to test out how to get that done. So,
Mm.
but I have two or three people who want to do voice acting for this, so it's gonna be really cool. Journal
Ooh.
entry 1. Aaron Nix. I'm actually going to auto this. Head guild master, or head guild manager, date unsure. For the inaugural journal entry, I thought I'd bring future readers up to speed. We call ourselves the Displaced, a coalition of survivors who found themselves in a strange forest surrounded by vicious beasts. The elves call this place Ard'Vanwa. It roughly means the realm of the missing but never forgotten. I think it has a poetic nuance to it. We try to be sentimental around here, even the elves. No one really knows how to feel about that term, but it's what we learned to call ourselves. We used to call ourselves the Lost, ghouls, wraiths, shadows, and a number of other things, but none of it ever felt right. None of us felt dead. We know we can die here, and quite easily. No one understands how we got here. Was it some sick joke of a demented godhead or a random fluctuation of some non existent particle? We all want answers and a way to escape where we are. Everyone's story is different, but there are a few key aspects that the survivors have determined. Number one, anything you are holding will come with you. And number two, after 300 years of research, we finally found a way out. There is so much we don't know about this realm, even though a city has been founded and is actively preserving. Let me redo that one again. There is so much we don't know about the realm, even though a city has been founded and is actively preserving all the information we can gather for our escape. A little bit about our new home. We're on an island of sorts, with an edge that falls into a void of unimaginable comprehension. It floats in a nexus of sorts, and it is the accumulation of everything the multiverse loses. Air, water, sunlight, all are provided by the displacement curse as molecules of these elements fall victim to the curse. I can't remember how it felt to have the sun kiss my skin. With 300 years worth of development, we finally connected to a new world. I was asked to lead the efforts of building a team of explorers to the world we connected to in order to see if it's habitable. Then, we'll start the evacuation process and get everyone we can out of Terraceburg. We're hoping to find brave adventurers who will scour the multiverse to find a way to allow respite from the onslaught of unnatural terrors outside of the walls. For the refugees of Terraceburg and our pet Tarask, Terry. I posted flyers in the tavern, church, library, and barracks. I'm hoping to draw attention from the demi-humans as well as human specialists, the thieves, fighters, magic users, and clerics. Actually, let me reread that one. I'm hoping to draw attention from the demi-humans as well as the human specialists, thieves, fighters, magic users, and clerics. Erin looked over her journal in frustration. She felt the urge to tear the offending page from its vellum brethren, but decided to finish the entry later. She had no real idea what she was supposed to do or how it even worked. Just what did these people expect her to even do? From her perspective, she fell into a fantasy novel that she enjoyed reading at work. But according to most of the other displaced, a non magical world like hers is quite rare. You wanted some cider? Primrose placed a cup next to her. Her halfling counterpart was twice her age, but acted like her younger sister. Energetic and enthusiastic, her wide-eyed optimism always lightened her mood. Thanks, Primmy. Primrose brightened up and scurried off to a pile of boxes in the corner of their newly acquired guild hall. It was Primrose who pointed out that the old tavern her family ran was hardly used after the Barefoot Inn was created, and Terraceburg was too small a community to have competing businesses. So Primrose's family donated the building to the cause. And what a cause it is. Erin did her best to adapt to life in Terraceburg. She used to manage a temp service office in her old world and had experience handling people with clashing personalities and belligerent attitudes. Now she was scrambling to come up with a filing system, solve the money issue, figure out a way to assess skills and talent, and get everyone to work together. She created a basic system as a sort of patch job. She looked over the application paperwork and grimaced at its simplicity. She could already tell the logistical nightmare it was going to be if this turns into a long-term project. She's here! Erin snapped from her thoughts. A smile crept across her lips as a black-haired, olive-skinned woman covered in leather armor and fur walked in. Melissa! Erin gave her a hug. Thanks for meeting me here. I got your message and was wondering about what you had to talk about. So what do you think so far? Yeah, yeah, what do you think so far?
It's pretty cool, to be honest.
What's that?
It's pretty cool.
Awesome. I think my mic's up too high. The strong-stoked woman Erin had known for almost as long as she'd been trapped looked like she was about to weep. Tell me this isn't real. She struggled to keep her voice from quivering as she thrust forward a crumpled flyer, the one she posted this morning around the city. Please tell me, of all the places, this isn't the one we discover. Erin's heart sank. She was never one to share her past, and Erin was never one to push. They had been friends for years. I need to figure out how to get the timing to slow down, because I want her to just slowly pace back and forth. So she kind of looks like she's spastic here. Erin's heart sank. She was never one to share her past, and Erin was never one to push. They had been friends for years, but Melissa had been a strong supporter of hers for this position. Now her friend paced in front of her like a mad woman. That's the name the clerics gave us. Erin rustled some papers around while she looked for the report the elves gave her of the last portal test. We made the connection, and all the deities touched were instantly connected with one of the gods. And all of the... I need to change... I have a notepad here. All the divine... Change to divine... And not in the bad way. Alright, we made the connection, and all the divinely touched were instantly connected with one of the gods in that realm, all of whom said the world's name is Mystara. We got confirmation from a magic user who was able to use a spell to send a message to his family and give us a date. Erin looked back up from the paper to Melissa. Don't give me hope. She let out a sob. Erin held her close until she calmed down. Primrose brought over a mug of ale and set it next to Melissa, who took a massive swig and emptied it. I know he's gone, but I accepted this was my punishment for going against my fate. Sit down and talk to me. She was worried about her friend, who seemed to be muttering something under her breath to herself. I have a proposition. She grabbed Erin's shoulders and yanked her close to her face. I want to donate something to the guild. Erin and Melissa looked... So this is the next scene here. You're going to be coming up here in a minute. Across from them sat... Okay. Erin and Melissa looked over the motley crew assembled before them. Across from them sat a smiling halfling, a homeless-looking elf with a scruffy beard, a second elf who seemed to be a little on edge, and a magic user who turned up a few days ago that showed talent in some odd ways.
Hey.
Hello, and thank you for answering my flyer. She conveyed it as politely as she could. She had hoped for the best of the best, but she was asking people to venture off into the unknown and delve into uncharted lands and risk their very lives. What she was asking sounded absolutely insane, yet sitting before her were four people willing to take that step. Before we begin the meeting, I'd like us to introduce ourselves so we can get to know each other personally. Erin sipped her tea. Rogan. I don't know why there. She looked at the scruffy elf. Hold on. This is why we do these. Rogan. She looked at the scruffy elf with a beard, indicating he were to go first. I love the music I picked for him too. Did elves grow beards? She was shocked when an almost southern drawl came out of his mouth, shattering the current held fantasy of posh, near British sounding elves. She was going to have a serious word with whoever trained elves to speak like this for her. My name's Fallon Oakenheel, he said confidently, kicking back his leg and putting his arms behind his head. She half expected him to pull out a grass straw and put it in his mouth to chew. She felt a little cheated he didn't. Can't figure out how long I've been here, but I'm bored as all get out and want to get out and stretch my legs. Figured this would be safer than playing fetch with Terry outside the walls. Erin could barely contain her sheer amazement at his attitude, but she kept her composure and helped the elf along with a supporting question. Could you tell the group a little bit about your skills? We filled out that. To her abject horror, the elf produced his copy of the guild personnel sheet she had patiently watched him fill out hours before and had asked him to keep safe. It was crumpled into a ball with a string tied around the top. He untied the makeshift pouch to expose a small handful of nuts and berries Fallon must have scavenged on his way here. Her distress must have been palatable because Melissa reassuringly touched her forearm, as if saying, I know, just let it go. He said with his unsettling drawl. Says here I can use a sword and a bow, and I'm an elf, so my hearing's good, and, dark vision? Oh, I forgot those other folks have trouble seeing at night, so yeah, I can do that too. What else? He flipped the paper over while absent-mindedly munching on his impromptu snack. Oh yeah, I can do some magic, I can read it, of course. Also, I can cast a sleep spell. It was the last scroll I had on me when I arrived, and I was able to transfer it to a new spellbook. He finished up with a long drawl and tapped his forehead with a grin. Got it all ready to go, he said back with a triumphant look and slid a toothpick between his teeth. Erin was almost beside herself and crying on the inside at this affront to all that is an elf. Thank you, Fallon, Erin politely said and looked at the other elf in the group. She hoped he would at least be normal. Estelle, he said, and went silent and crossed his arms. Everyone looked expectantly at him to continue. He let out a sigh and grumbled. The homeless guy pretty much summed up what we can do. I have a bow, I shoot things, let's get this over with. Aaron was about to say something when the halfling next to him piped up. Estelle, what spells do you have ready? It seems like a good idea to be prepared. Estelle let out a defeated sigh and just grumbled. Floating disc. No one said a word let me redo that. No one said a word, and as... okay, another edit there. No one said a word, and let the silence pressure Estelle to continue to talk. It was the only damn scroll I had, okay? I was trying to buy a new fireball scroll, but the merchant was determined to offload this useless thing on me. Estelle grumbled. I only had it memorized because I was told to have everything ready by our boss here. What does it do? The halfling asked Estelle with a warm, genuine smile and a look of keen interest at Estelle's answer. It was too much for the stoic elf. Estelle dropped his arms, let out a defeated sigh, and explained to the curious halfling. It's a disc. It floats behind you, you can put stuff on it, it's useless. Estelle quit. You can put treasure on it! he said excitedly. His eyes were wide like saucers with visions of piles of golden gems. Here you go. You want to read that one?
Or a body, if someone is too injured to move.
There you go. The magic user interjected sheepishly and shrunk away from the mutually admonished gazes of everyone in the room. There you
no, no pessimistic thought before suicide mission. Got it.
go. Awesome. He seemed to be talking more to himself with the last comment. All right, Estelle said shortly. Your turn. Isn't there a pie that needs to be tending to? I'm Eldon Fleetfoot. I've helped out in the halfling squads outside the walls during the scavenging runs some. I know how to swing a sword. I'm good out in the wild, not so much inside, but I can make do, and I like to think I'm tough for my size. He didn't really take the bait Estelle set out for him and smiled at everyone. Aaron nodded to the magic user who clutched a short sword across his lap. There you
go. Go there, Darkwood. I'm a new...
Youther looked at his paperwork.
Medium? A medium who arrived recently. I'm good at the sling. The sword is, sentimental, so I don't really use it. I have magic missiles by memorize.
Youther said sheepishly.
I hope to be able to help out.
Everyone could feel the palatable tension in the air. Aaron needed to move things along to prevent this expedition from self-destructing before even leaving the realm. Well, I'll let Melissa explain what we're going to be doing, Aaron said and leaned back in her chair and took a sip of tea. Mistress Melissa leaned forward and took command of the room. Her smile was dominating and demanded respect and attention. All disruption from the group melted away instantly. Are any of you from Mystara? Melissa asked. The party before her shook their heads. Have you heard of Rogan and Zelagar? The explorers remained silent. Many years ago, two noted personages grew in fame and renown. Rogan the Fearless and Zelagar the Unknown. These brothers-in-arms pooled their resources and expertise into constructing a home, a stronghold for the two of them to use as a base of operation. The location of this hidden complex was chosen with care. Both men disliked visitors and intruders. They had both accumulated many enemies, so secrecy was key. They chose a location far from the nearest settlement, away from traveled routes, and high upon a craggy hill that was nestled within a secret forested valley inside a mountain range. Once the location was chosen, the new construction took shape, carved out of the rock protrusion which crested the heavily forested hill. This magical hideaway was well hidden, and its rumored existence was never common knowledge. Even less well known was its name, the Caverns of Quazquake. Construction of the new complex took well over a decade, even with the aid of Zelagar's magic, the work of hundreds of barbarian slaves and laborers. Vast amounts of rocks were removed and tumbled off the rough cliffs into large piles now overgrown with vegetation. A single tower was constructed above ground for lookout purposes, even though surrounded by jagged and near impassable peaks. Rogan and Zelagar lived in their joint sanctuary for quite some time, conducting the affairs from within, except for the occasional adventures into the outside world where both men attempted to add to their reputations as the foremost practitioners of their respected arts. Their deeds and adventures of these two battle brothers were never well known, since they both kept their distance from civilization and often would leave without any fanfare, just payment for the jobs they do. While talking to people of Mystara, some say, and perhaps rightfully so, that their motives were based on greed and some kind of vague or chaotic evil. No one really knows for sure. Well, is known more widely as their reputation of each. Despite their questionable alignment, both Rogan and Zelagar capped their reputation of power when they joined forces to stop a barbarian invasion threatening the Great Valley below. In a crucial battle at a narrow pass in the hills, the two combined powerful forces and decisively turned back the invasion. Rogan slew a horde of barbarians single-handedly, and Zeligar's powerful magic put the army to flight, and grateful populace rewarded the pair and their henchmen with considerable treasure, after which the two retired to their hideaway. Most of the reward treasure was apparently used to finance the further construction of Quasquaton, although some of it may yet be hidden somewhere. In any case, the hill stronghold was not completed in its entirety when, years later, the intrepid pair apparently embarked on their last adventure. Some years ago, Rogan and Zeligar decided upon a joint foray into the lands of the hated barbarians. Taking most of their henchmen and associates along in a great armed band, the two personages disappeared into the forbidding alien lands to the north, far from the hills and forests surrounding Quasquaton. It was in a great battle in the barbarian lands where Rogan and Zeligar met their demise. Now the stronghold lay abandoned, hidden away in the mountains. If our intelligence is correct, it's been abandoned for roughly 30 years, and who knows what may have moved in and made it their home. One thing I'm for certain is that it's still there. The Zeligar's magic would ensure the stronghold stands. I need to make a note there because I messed the part up. She broke her. Alright. She broke her business-like demeanor and gave a wry smile. Zelly always joked that it would take a direct meteor strike to put a dent in that place. Melissa wiped away a tear and continued her presentation. I'm sure you're wondering how I know all this, Melissa said, her voice cracked slightly. Rogan the Fearless was my paramour. The stronghold is technically mine, and I've decided to donate it to the Explorers Guild to use as a base of operations. It's been over 30 years since I've been involved in the politics of Karamikos, but a lot can change over that period of time. Erin set down her tea and took over the dialogue. We need to secure Quasquaton and establish a base of operations in Mystara. We checked, and about only 50 residents have come forward as displaced Mystarians. We have about 25 who have come forward and offered to help this excursion as backups and guides. We need to verify and check out the place, and we can work on migration after that. My hope is we can move out of Terrisburg after this expedition, set up shop in Quasquaton, then we can work on getting everyone else home. According to the Elfin Magic User researchers, it's just a matter of time before they can figure out how to aim the connection. Erin continued to explain. I come from a non-magic world, so I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just reading the report. So, we go in this here stronghold that's been abandoned in a secret forest deep in the rugged mountains, the homeless elf said while chewing on his toothpick. Make sure it's not infested with things so we can get out of this here city and start getting on with our lives. Sounds easy enough, he scoffed. I mean, how big can it be? 2 floors, 58 rooms, and a maze of tunnels. Melissa gave the group a wry smile to counter their dumbfounded looks. I have never walked around unattended by either Rogan or Zeligar, aside from a few familiar hallways. Only Zeligar and our elven aide Marivek knows all the secrets of that place. There are nights when Zeligar would roam the halls and warp the very grounds. I've consulted other magic users and no one is sure what effects his enchantments will be after they've degraded over 30 years. I implore you, do not take this mission lightly, Melissa pleaded in earnest. So you want us to jump into a portal into an unknown dimension to try to fumigate the abandoned mansion of a mad wizard and his best brawler buddy. I'm not seeing the benefit for us, myself in particular. You will be compensated. You can claim anything inside as your own. To be clear, Erin interrupted, she didn't want Melissa to promise something she wasn't qualified to promise. You'll be awarded credit for obtaining artifacts and items that can be used in exchange into the local currency of the world you are working. Any magical items, gears, or trinkets you wish to keep are fair game. Just work it out amongst yourself. If no one wants the item, you can check it into the guild, and it will become available to anyone who wishes to use it as a communal item, at my discretion. Aaron commented sternly. The last thing she needs is another wish debacle. The guild will provide item assessments after an expedition if requested. Currently, this service is free of charge, but may change in the future. Now, on to the next point of order. Aaron gave everyone a cheerful smile. We have offers of support for the displaced Mystarians. There'll be guides who are familiar with the local world and will be an extra sword at hand. They're going to be an invaluable resource. Understand they are risking their lives as well, so you will need to negotiate terms amongst yourselves. It shall be available to arbitrate if needed. The standard rate offered for supporting member is half share of the split, and a chance to split the treasures acquired. 5 people entered the room, 3 dressed in dark leather armor and 2 clad in heavier armor. Let me introduce you to our thieves. Scout, mercenary, rogue, assassin, specialist, locksmith, trapper. An unassuming woman said, wearing light brown leather armor.
Well, they get the makeover, alright?
Yeah. Why must you use such a crass and unelegant term? I'm not going to argue over semantics, Bozimus. Paperwork is already filled out. You can open a lock without a key. You're classified as a thief, just like I don't care what kind of elf you are. But I care when I have about 50 of a certain classification to sort through, then I'll think about changing the system. Now, do you want to sit down and talk or go back to your cell and finish your sentence? Bozimus smiled politely and sat down with the graceful movement of a cat, crossed her legs and rested her hands on one knee. She gave the rest of the room a polite smile and waved to Aaron with a bit of a flourish, indicating she can continue without interruption. Since you put all the attention to yourself, why don't you introduce yourself? I am Bozimus, looking forward to working with you. He gave her dagger a flourish and bowed. Nimble and quick, I can get into hard-to-reach places, find and open doors that you wouldn't even notice. You'll want me to help in case there are some traps in that place. You can say I'm a security specialist of sorts. The second rogue let out a sigh and shrugged. He seemed young and quite full of himself. He didn't really make eye contact and acted like he had somewhere else he'd rather be. Lagamundo. I can stab stuff and sneak. You know what we're capable of. This whole thing is stupid anyways. The final thief stepped forward. He was a massive man and that towered over the other two. He had a thick accent and a thicker mustache. Aaron felt his clothes had a bit of a Middle Eastern feel to it. I am Hark from the city of Far, he said with a booming voice and a lavish bow. I am happy to offer my services. I am so bad at this. Nice to meet you, Hark. Doors fall before my dancing fingers. He gleefully wiggled his fingers. Traps shriek in terror at my tools, and Harg will do his best to find the secret things. Eldon's enamorment of Harg quickly turned to terror as he scurried around the chair as Harg wiggled his fingers at the halfling. That's very unsettling, Harg. The 2 armor-clad individuals remained quiet and off to the side. Well, guess we better make our choice. Aaron winced at his long drawl. Honestly, I like Bozo here. She's got spunk. That's a name you pick yourself? You like making a habit of talking about people in front of him? Lagamundo glared at Fallon while Harg and Bozimus blocked the young man. Wasn't talking about you, Laggy. You rubbed me the wrong way, so why the hell would I want to work with you? Fallon quit back. Say that again, Elf. You're looking like you'd rather be somewhere else. If you're not going to take this seriously, then get out of here. Lagamundo. It's a family name, she smiled. But be careful how far you run with that joke. I'll take that under... Yeah, let me redo that. I'll take that under advisement, ma'am. The party looked over at the presenting thieves and talked amongst themselves. Come on. Oh. And of course, breaks. Oh, there we go.
Ah.
I kind of like Hark. No! Everyone. The rest of the party unanimously said. Sorry, buddy. It's just like you said. It's just, you said like 5 words to us, and it really hurt my head. If we're gonna be in a life or death situation, I don't need to waste seconds trying to translate your broken comment. No offense? Harg looked broken-hearted. Flagamundo got up from his makeshift seat and went to console Harg. Look, I mean, you're probably a really nice rogue. You Scarelock's good. Fallon backpedaled. But how about we check the place out first, and if it ain't so bad, we can pick you next time. Come on, let's head to the tavern. We don't need help, these assholes. He ignored the glares from the rest of the room. Harg just nodded and left with Flagamundo. Bozimus just shrugged and began cleaning her nails with her dagger. Might want to get the cleric sorted. She pointed to the
sorry.
What's that?
Phone? Just a phone.
Oh, okay. Might want to get the cleric sorted. She pointed a dagger at her armored companions nonchalantly.
Hello. Igen, még itt vannak.
And just give us a moment. Here. Galther's on the phone. Yeah, off the phone?
Alright, sorry, I'm back.
Yep, no problem. Just trying to give you your privacy. She pointed a dagger at her armored companions nonchalantly. Maybe get someone else to talk to them, though. The smelly one here might get us all cursed. Where in all of Terrisburg do you even find soap? You make it from animal fat and potash. The general store has a supply of it if you ask them. Have you really not washed your clothes in the entirety you've been here? Estelle looked at Fallon in sheer amazement. I assumed nobody was washing and everybody was just not saying anything and ignoring the smell. Fallon said and sniffed his armor. You know, it's not polite to sell someone they stink, and I thought we were all being polite. Everyone scooched away from Fallon. Aaron frantically made a note to give a supply of hygiene products to all guild members upon joining. An armored man stepped forward to present himself in full regality. I am Farned of the Great Church. Farned's Great. Oh. He gave an elaborate bow. The cleric was in full armor, wearing a helmet with wings and rather large goggles. Aaron had met him on numerous occasions, and he could often be found at the orphanage, entertaining the children. Yeah, Farney, Bozimus sarcastically said and clapped. Farned shot her a warning glance. She mouthed, "Do it," egging him on. Aaron was still trying to wrap her head around common language. It's a sort of root Latin-based system language. It has taken her almost 3 years to master it, with many words that match some Spanish and French roots from her world. The entire construction of it was to create a simple universal language for all sentient species to learn. And in common language, Bozul still means a rude, obnoxious, or annoying person. The other armored individual stepped between the two of them and removed her helmet. Everyone in the room covered her eyes as the blinding light flashed, and when they recovered their senses, the room was 3 or 4 torches lighter. The other cleric's hair was levitating, moving like it was underwater and glowing with the intensity of a lantern. Behold, I am the mystical one. Touched by the divine, I shall grace you with my presence, protect you from the foul unclean that inhabits. Please, we talked about this. He put her helmet back on and put his finger on her lips. He looked exhausted, as if this is a conversation he's had with her many, many times. She whimpered a huff and kept quiet. She's really a good girl and quite talented, but she's a little overeager with her devotion. Can any of you cast healing spells? I can, but the mystical one was given a staff of healing that can perform 3 miracles a day, Farned said, and nudged the sullen cleric as she stepped forward to show them a gnarled walking stick. She seems really inexperienced. I'm afraid she's going to try and be belligerent to anything we come across, and that hair is not really good for stealth. Understand, ma'am, we're thinking about safety and of you and ourselves. As Fallen tried to explain, the mystical one stomped off with a huff and slammed Aaron's door. Wow, Bosmus gave Fallen a dramatic slow clap. You just have a way with people there, Smell. Huh? Fallen looked confused with the word. Well, there are 2 elves, and really there's no point remembering your name, so to keep track of you, I'll call him Elf, and you Smell, short for Smelly Elf, she said while juggling a few daggers. Hey, oh, there you go. Your line's next.
Huh. I like her. Smell. That's funny.
Eldon let out a slight chuckle. Now that the discovery of soap has been revealed, do we have time to give him a bath? I'm sure some of my sisters can help scrub and mend his clothes. I didn't even know elves could grow beards. We don't. At least not from where I'm from, Mistal said and yanked Fallon's beard. Maybe there's some dwarf in your lineage. All right, that's enough. I get it. I'm smelly and scruffy. That's neither here nor there right now. Now we have a job to do and we're just wasting time. Fallon got up from his seat. Let's get on out of here. As everyone left her office, Aaron and Melissa took a deep breath and looked at each other. This is going to work, right? He asked. Yes, there's plenty of room. We could easily fit everyone in Terraceburg there and settle the surrounding forests. There's plenty of raw materials to build new settlement. The dwarves will have something to mine and work on as well. You know how cranky they've been since the last trip to the mountain. She reassured. Her smile went from genuine to plastic. What is it? Aaron asked dryly. She was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I just remembered about Zeligar complaining one day. He kept a rather large spider in the lower levels. That uneasy feeling in Aaron's stomach sank further. He needed a source of venom for research, but I'm sure it's probably dead by now, right? He hasn't fed it a cultist in 30 years. Cultist? One spider, you feed cultists too. Aaron looked at her best friend in disbelief. She seemed unaware of how odd what she said was. Yes, cultists are quite the problem in Mistar. They are everywhere. Zeligar brings them back for experimentation and who knows what else about once a month. Aaron's expression remained a plastic smile while she ran her numbers on what she is now learning. Also, they should really test the waters in the pool room just to be safe. You have a pool there? Yeah, about 10 or 20. It's hard to remember. Zeligar had to go in there monthly to recalibrate the spells that kept the stuff inside the pools working. What are you talking about? The green slime pool should be safe. I mean, who's going to jump into a pool that contains a massive, giant acidic green slime? It's obvious. Aaron felt numb, right? What has she done? Aaron slammed both hands palm down onto her desk and stood abruptly. Melissa startled and stopped talking when Primrose burst through the door, alerted by her desk slam. She frantically scribbled out detailed instructions and shoved it into Primrose's tiny hands. Primmy, send this note to the Church of Worship. We're going to need as many clerics on hand as possible, and fetch me every resurrection scroll we have on archive. The party arrived at the center of town and pushed through a gathering crowd. Everyone was wishing the group luck and offered some advice to or an excuse as to why they're not going. Before the portal's construction, the area was a park that sat in the center of Terraceburg. This area was where the first camps were, and everyone felt the memorial for that time was appropriate. Erin passed the small engraved memorial listing the fallen displaced and quickly averted her eyes before looking at the names. She wondered every day why hers wasn't on there. She came from a non-magic world, something quite rare apparently. She watched people far more skilled than any police officer or military person she knew be completely wiped away from existence in front of her eyes, and yet here she was. A massive archway stood alone in the center of a ring of waist-high stones with a section open to allow access. The fence was more for magic than security, according to the people she had asked. The arch was about 10 feet high and 5 feet wide, enough for a cart and two horses to go through. Terraceburg had put every resource they had in creating this. Every spellbook they recovered, every scroll, potion, tome of knowledge they had found in 300 years was put forth to pierce a hole into the veil between worlds. The elves call what happened a curse. Ard'Vanwa is the land of the missing, where things that disappear fall to. She thought this was a rather funny analogy until she saw mounds of lost socks being carefully dismantled for their raw threads in order for the tailors to create the current fashions of their lands. Every month, when halfling rangers returned with goods scavenged from the woods, she hoped to find technology or artifacts from her world. It's the same with most people. Everyone is searching for something to connect them to where they're from. Erin was still unsure exactly how this all worked, but from what she'd been told, she only needed to rest her hand against the stone, and it would open the portal to the programmed location. She walked up to the portal and hovered her hand over the cool stone, pausing for a moment as the gathering crowd caught her eye. Looking around at the expected city folk who came to watch the first expedition, expectant looks of hope filled their eyes. She had hoped to get away with just pushing them through and going back to her paperwork. She didn't want to give a speech. She wasn't that kind of manager. The party paused behind her, wondering what was going on when the crowd began to murmur. Just one moment. She gave the group a smile and stepped away from the portal. She took a calming breath and put on her biggest smile. Welcome, everyone. She spoke loud enough to reach the crowd's ears. Thank you all for showing up and seeing off our brave explorers. Today is a groundbreaking day for everyone. She might as well just go with the flow. If she said something wrong, she'll sure to hear about it from the council members of Terrace. She even spotted one who wore a permanent scowl. Erin's plastic smile grew mischievous. Let's all remember the efforts it took to get here. For untold centuries. Her anxiety washed away now that she was in presenter mode, something she'd had to do with her regional managers once a month during company reviews. We had to struggle here to survive. Look around. These walls are up. We have food and we're safe. But is that good enough? Are you happy with settling in and hoping for rescue? Don't you miss your loved ones, friends, families, pets? The crowd murmured, and the council member's face grew furious. Oh, she's right there, but not showing up. I need to fix that. You see the little arm there?
Oh, yeah. She's just shy.
Yeah. Yeah, this zoomed in too far. I need to figure out how to fix that. Crowd murmured and the council member's face grew furious the more she talked. We found a way out, she pointed to the portal. And anyone here can help. We need the help. When I formed the Explorers Guild, my number one promise was transparency for our town. We all know what secrets can do. Erin's last comment was pointed directly at the council member who stormed off. With the pressure off her, she relaxed a little bit and changed up her speech. Look, I just want to open this up and say all clear for everyone here. We don't know what will happen, so we need to run a few tests. I have been working on plans for a mass migration and relocation application. My goal, the entire goal of all of this is for one thing: to get us home. We're missing, not dead. Lost, not forgotten. And I, for one, am not going to let an interdimensional garbage pile get the better of me. As if on cue, a distant roar from a Tarrasque erupted over the walls. Terry agrees. A light chuckle washed through the crowd. I'm sure he'd like to get back to his home too. I want to thank everyone again for coming and supporting our brave warriors. They are doing something amazing, and let's give them a hand and show them they have our support. The crowd erupted into applause. Erin placed her hand on the portal and blue light swirled around. Magic sigils floated in the air and space inside warped, stretched, and warbled until the other side was showing a lush forest and rocky path. She had thought it would be like Stargate where the water rippling effect, but this was just weirder. There was no hum, no reverberations. It was like the time-space had been affixed to this point. Even on the other side of the portal, the opposite side would show. The effect was hurting Erin's head, but before anyone passed through, she held her hand out to stop them. She's going to take the first step. Please, just wait. We had tested smaller versions and had success with animals, but this is the most dangerous part. She looked at her new members and smiled. How can I send you out every day into this world if I can't bring myself to take the first step and put myself at risk? Before anyone could protest, she took a step backwards and stepped into the portal. She didn't feel a thing. It was exactly like when she was brought over the first time. She felt the sun. It was warm and washed over her. She smelled the air and breathed in the clean and cool air that came in over the mountain. She covered her mouth to keep from crying. She never thought she'd feel the warmth of the sun again. Ard'Vanwa gets everything from other universes. Its light, its air, its soil are all displaced and have been formed into a giant island that resides in what can only be called a temporal eddy. She remembered reading about a garbage patch in the Pacific that formed due to the currents. It's the best way she can conceptualize what this place is. She took another moment and smiled at the people she can see through the arch. Give me a moment to peek around. She lightly jogged around the archway and didn't notice any signs of foot traffic or beasts. She scanned the tree lines looking for smoke in case someone set up a camp nearby. It looked clear. She walked back in and gave a thumbs up. All right, it looks clear. She passed back through the portal. She felt relieved the return trip worked. The party moved through with fanfare and sheepishly waved to the well-wishers. They began to realize the sheer weight of their task before anyone could say a thing. Erin disconnected the portal with a waving smile. We need to save power, Erin explained dismissively to the crowd with a sheepish smile. The crowd dispersed and her fellow guild managers met up with her as she walked back to the still renovating guild hall. And I'm going to need some scouts for the forested area around Quasquaton. Also, we need to start checking out supplies and finding a water source that we can build a village next. They spoke for about 10 minutes inside the guild hall when the doors burst open and a beaten, bloodied Eldon collapsed on the floor. His wounds were superficial, but his face bore a look of someone who had given up. Hurry! Send me back! He was frantic. Eldon was covered in cuts and scrapes and seemed to be out of sorts. Erin and the guild managers were visibly confused. We just sent you through not 30 minutes ago, Erin said. Eldon sat down shakily and drank from a glass primrose set before him. I was there 10 minutes, Eldon said. It was like someone yanked me hard. I was outside the walls, like I was displaced again. His jovial face turned to grief. I couldn't understand. I didn't realize what happened until I heard Terry's cry. Then I knew I was back here. I wanted to just die. I'm so tired of it here. Eldon broke down. Aaron's consoled the brave halfling while she silently conversing with the concerned guild managers. Everyone hurried back about their tasks, Primrose taking a seat next to her charge and rubbed his back reassuringly. This changes everything. All of her relocation plans had gone up in smoke. They were not escaping this place. Eldon collected himself and wiped away his tears. I'm sorry. I try to push it out of my mind and keep smiling. I'm okay. No, you're done for now. You need to rest and take a break. She looked over at her fellow managers for a suggestion. Well, I know someone who's been itching to get out. Her bearded dwarf liaison chuckled and cracked her knuckles. Let me go grab him. I'll toss him through the portal personally if he gives me any gruff. Primrose had gotten up and made some hot tea and sat back down next to Eldon, who sipped it with a sullen look of defeat. There, this will make you feel better. She slid a full berry pie to him. Made this today from those berries you foraged last week. I was going to give it to you when everyone got back. She paused and looked like he wanted to take back her words when Eldon pulled the pie to him and dug in. It's good. The glum words bubbled through his cheeks full of pie. Aaron gave his shoulder a reassuring pat and left the two of them alone. Halflings are so hard to understand for her. She sort of gets how elves think, even dwarves, but the stout people who seem to be the most vulnerable often have the biggest hearts and the bravest natures. There she is.
She's super time.
Yeah. The door to the Explorers Guild opened up, interrupting everyone. One of the council members stood in the entryway. Her eyes immediately landed on Eldon and mid-bite and pointed an accusatory finger at him. What's he doing here? We need to talk. My office now. She glared daggers at the intrusion and was in no mood to deal with bureaucratic bullshit. She made a mental note to ask Lonnie to soundproof her office. Her explorers might be fighting in another world for the very survival of the city. Spell check another. Spell check another world. For the very survival of the city, she's going to have to do another battle for the survival of the guild. In Mystara, I really like how I did this scene. This dog gasped. Eldon? Did that just happen? Eldon? I saw him. I was watching. I blinked and he vanished. You know how halflings are. He probably went to do something in the bush. I am telling you, he vanished. Oh, there you go.
Saw it too.
Everyone was looking at the spot Eldon had moved, and it was now occupied by empty space. The chatty halfling was in mid-step, and he seemed to just walk out of reality. No one wanted to move. We should head back. That's just too disturbing. We'll try again later. Coward. She quipped and huffed, yet she stood frozen in place, as with everyone else. No one seemed to want to experiment and see what caused Eldon's disappearance. An argument erupted between the parties. The portal behind them interrupted with a blue flash. A bearded dwarf woman wearing a guild uniform piped in from the other side, was dragging someone with her, protesting loudly. Heard you lost someone, she said jovially as the dwarf he had a firm grip on struggled to get away. Don't worry about Eldon. He's fine, just a little shaken up. Gotcha a good meat shield. Just try to bring him back in one piece. If he gives you any lip, tell me and I'll give his attitude another readjustment. A bald dwarf hesitantly stood in front of the portal and looked back in protest, while Ruthie cracked her knuckles. Don't you get what I've been saying? I'm a rockborn. Magic doesn't work on me. Ruthie raised up her foot and gave him a good swift kick, knocking him through the portal. Yee! You daft arse! Krago frantically gathered his things and checked for missing fingers and toes. Rockborns resist magic! I could have been turned into pudding! My insides could have been left on my outsides, and that's never a good thing. Seems to work. She chuckled and disconnected the portal.
Just plug it out, sure.
Yeah, she just unplugged it. The dwarf let out a string of curses most couldn't recognize. Welcome to the party. Fallon offered his hand. Nice to meet you. Name's Krago of the Mountains. Everybody shook his rough hand. Try not to die on me. He stormed off down up the pathway. The rest of the party followed behind. Quasquaton was nestled inside a valley surrounded by a forest, which is surrounded by a vast mountain range. The outcropping that the stronghold was carved into was an odd dark stone in the back of the cave, and the back of the cave, a hand-hewn wall, had a thick oak door set into it. It took the party hours to locate the entrance. It was a cave about 10 feet across, covered in vines and overgrowth. From a distance, no one would ever see this place. We got a door here. Estelle pointed forward to a massive oak door that was set into the wall of the cave. Indeed, that is a door.
Are we going to open the door?
We are. But we don't know what's behind it, so we gotta listen first, then see if there are traps, test it for locks. We're breaking into a home, or we're infiltrating an abandoned structure. We don't know what's in there or behind it. For all we know, some goblins set the door to explode and crush us with rocks. I thought Swordboy made it clear about pessimistic talk on suicide missions. Estelle snapped at her. Why not make yourself useful then? Ozimus confidently walked forward and put her ear on the door, inspected the lock. She gave a chuckle and just pushed the door open. Looks like somebody hacked away at the latch. You know how long ago it was opened? She gave him an odd look. Hey, I just opened them, boss. I don't really pay attention much after that, she said and put away her tools. Why do you say he's the boss? Estelle knelt down and examined the damage himself. Can we not do this? Fallon pleaded and held open the door to let people inside. Let's just go inside, sweep up the place, set out the welcome mat for our friends. That's why. Bozma skipped past the stall. Barna just sighed as he passed the threshold and the others followed suit. The stall muttered to himself as he caught up with the group. The party lit the torches and looked down the vast hallway. Every 20 feet there was a 10-foot alcove. Spell check alcove.
Oh, it doesn't need to be capitalized either.
Yeah. Most likely used for a guard to hide in. These walls seemed to be the same hewn black stone that the structure was made from, giving it an eerie glow from the reflecting torchlight. The walls are smooth, and the ceiling goes up about 10 feet. This is interesting. They continued to walk down the hallway, looking into each alcove as they passed. There were 6 total. Fallon had instructed Krago to stand next to him and protect their cleric. He put himself in front of the mage while Estelle and Bosimus covered their back. They slowly approached the final alcove and noticed a small set of stairs. It only had 3 steps, but it opened up to 3 hallways. They could see doors and odd shadows being cast from the torchlight. Let's keep guard as we move forward, Fallon said and took a step forward. The eastern wall of the final 2 alcoves warped and morphed into gigantic mouths that screamed at them, bellowing through the halls and causing everyone's ears to ring. Who dares enters this place and intrudes upon the sanctuary of its inhabitants, the magic mouth screamed. What in tarnation?
Uh, we have permission from Melissa?
Gelther piped up and said to the entity, only a group of hardy explorers doomed to a certain death, shouted an equally loud voice behind them, matching the magic mouth. A matching magic mouth cackled. Say that 3 times fast. Matching magic mouth. Woe to any who pass in this place! The wrath of Zelagar and Rogan will be upon them! They both shouted in unison and faded into the stonework, cackling the entire time.
Were they real?
Gelther seemed to think to himself, then come to a conclusion.
Oh, they're centipede. It's always going to say that every time I pass this way.
Huh? I wonder, Fallon said. He sat down on the floor and rummaged through his bag. What are you doing? Estelle impatiently tapped his foot. Well, I'm sure that about every damn thing in this place heard that, he articulated with his southern drawl, still digging through his bag. And if this is the only way in or out, aha, found it. He triumphantly pulled out a hammer and a massive iron spike. He walked over to the western wall of the alcove and hammered it into the hewn black stone. The pounding rang out and echoed through the halls. Each wince was a shot to the nerve, and each pound had a chance to alert anything in here to their presence. There we go. He inspected his handiwork thoroughly. All right, scooch back, everyone. If this works, I'll do the other side. If not, then I was able to get back at the rude one who scared us. Everyone moved back into the middle of the alcove, and Fallon stepped forward with his fingers in his ears. Who dares enters this place and intrudes upon the sanctuary of its inhabitants? The eastern wall magic mouth screamed. Silence fell upon the ears for what felt like ages. Fallon was about to answer when the western magic mouth morphed into view. His lips were formed around the spike, and it obstructed the tongue as it talked. Only a global gularia glor under Ard'Vanwa death, shouted an equally loud voice behind them. A matching magic mouth cackled. Woe to any who pass this place! The wrath of Zelagar and Rogan will be upon them. Both shouted in unison and faded into the stonework, cackling the entire time. There and Spike stayed in place. We done? Or do you want to just bang our weapons together and sing dwarven ballads at the top of our lungs while we explore this uncharted, abandoned, and clearly magically enchanted stronghold that some strange woman told us about? I know a very riveting opera that can make the stones weep. He proudly hummed a few bars. No! Everyone screamed. Well, it seems like my master plan failed, but we learned something new. Let's go up the stairs and try not to head back this way again. Fallon repacked his backpack, popped a few nuts in his mouth, and offered the rest in his hand to the party. Always good to keep up your energy. Bozimus chuckled and grabbed a few, popped them into her mouth, and nodded with approval while Estelle climbed the stairs and looked around. That's why he's the boss. She skipped past Estelle and took a moment to look over the selection of berries and nuts Fallon offered. I need to fix that part. Fix berries. Because she already took it and moved forward, and so she's repeating. Anyways. She selected a few choice pieces and turned to the group smugly as she twirled her dagger. It's time for me to scout ahead a bit to make sure. She took 2 steps and her jovial smile grew pale as she continued. We're not going to be ambushed and brutally murdered, our bodies stripped of anything valuable and left to rot.
I felt no negativity on the suicide mission.
Out there climbing the 3 steps and stopped, mouth agape at the scene before him.
So that was, by the way, just that was also not spelled correctly.
Okay, where is not
Previous.
agape?
No, the previous text box.
Oh, negativity.
Oh my, that's actually wow. Okay, that is not spelled right in multiple.
Okay, you have to understand how fast I usually type, and this is like
Okay, it's okay.
this is like my spell checking part too. So Gowther climbed the 3 steps.
Oh.
There, the rest of the party finally saw what stunned everyone into silence. It was a massacre. Oh, let's do this slow because I have this time. 5 dead bodies are strewn about the hallway, scattered remains of useless gear indicating the post-battle looting. Down the western hallway, a magic user clad in stained white robes was pinned against the wall at the end of the hallway, a sword driven through his chest and lodged into the black stone. His long white hair hung over his head and obscuring his face. White mage not show up. I'll show. Need right there. Next to him was a human fighter. His demise was
Fire.
Yeah, human fire. His demise was clear. A slash across his chest almost cleaved him in half. The party was not spared the look of shock and terror. His sword was cleaved through and broken 8 inches from the guard. The man must have tried to block a fatal blow and failed. The eastern hallway told a similar story as a dwarven fighter was face down just east of the junction. I should have put him face down. His armor had been stripped off except for a helmet and a massive dent. This must have been the fatal blow, as a trail of blood could be followed around the corner where he must have dragged himself before he expired. He still clung to his warhammer with a death grip. An empty sack haphazardly lay next to him. Next to the dwarf was the human berserker, a massive form stripped of anything valuable. A broken wooden shield lay smashed from a warhammer strike, his right arm twisted and broken from the blow. A sunken square in the middle of his ribs told of the dispatched blow. There is a look of satisfaction on his face as he seemed to be at peace. A second berserker was discovered at the end of the blood trail the dwarf left. This one is face down in a pool of blood from a warhammer strike to the skull. Like the other bodies, it had been stripped of any valuable armor and weapons. Well, he mischievously rubbed his hands. Guess we got no choice. I'll check out the dwarf over here. Gowther, go check out that wizard. See if he might have any spells or money on him. Want not, waste not, and all. What? Vaughn tried to yank the warhammer from the dead dwarf's fingers. Rigor mortis set in and the corpse refused to let go. Vaughn had to yank a few times to free the hammer. There was an audible cracking of bones as the hammer was ripped free. Everyone looked at him in abject horror as Fallon motioned to Gowther to look in the pockets. Y'all gonna help? Krago looked beyond words while Bozimus rested a hand on his shoulder as if saying, I get it. Let it go. Fallon looked at Bozimus and farted. I'm a thief. I've looted corpses more times than I can count, most of them ones I made. She pointed at Fallon, picked up the dwarven hammer. But that just feels wrong. Fallon swung the hammer a few times, looked at it for a moment, and handed it to Krago. Sorry, I guess you should have this, right? Fallon sheepishly handed the hammer to Krago. You think it's enchanted? You see absolutely nothing wrong with handing me the weapon you just tore from the death grip of one of my dead brethren? Right before my eyes. Krago seemed more astonished at the lack of tact than anger at the lack of respect. Wow. She chatted and gave a slow clap. That's just wow. Fallon looked unsure what to do as he held the looted hammer in front of him. Should I just put it back? Just give me the hammer. Krago sounded more disappointed than upset. Fallon sheepishly scratched the back of his head and grinned as Krago took the warhammer and walked away. After all that, I think we need a break from our faithless leader here. He chuckled and walked down the eastern hallway around the bend. I'm gonna check out this way for a few. I'll be back in a minute. We really should stick together, Fallon said as he was getting up from checking the berserker's corpse. He seemed annoyed that he didn't find anything. Gouther, you're the magic user. Go check the guy in the robes. We don't know if something's going to wander around and catch our pants down. He glanced at the second barbarian. Oh, that's a nice belt. I could use a good belt. Are you joking? It's covered in blood. Help me roll him over. He looked up at Kraga, who seemed just want to move on and do anything but this. After a moment, the belt was free. Fallon inspected the knife sheath that was attached to it and put it on. Nice, it fits. How very... Huh, it really is a nice belt. I know someone who would probably give you 50 gold for it if we get the blood out. Done. Fallon wiped his hand on his pant leg and held it out to Bosimus, who gingerly took it to seal the deal. Gouther sheepishly walked alone to the dead mage, letting Fallon haggle with Bosimus over the cost of the belt. The man was old. He could see a bald spot in the corn silk thin wisp of hair. The man was ancient. Dumb morons.
Hush.
Yeah, Lilith is talking to you right now.
Sorry, I thought that was okay.
Yeah, no. I'm just letting you know. He seemed to be talking to his sword. Pull it out! It's crying, can't you feel it? How could someone do that and leave it there? Gouther gulped and grabbed the sword handle. He could feel it loose in his grip. Someone used a lot of force to wedge it into the stone like this. Lucky for him, he knew the best way to dislodge something like this. A few wiggles and pulls, and he yanked the sword out of the wall, hefted it above his head triumphantly. And dropped it with a clatter as a jolt of pain shot through his body. Don't get any bright ideas.
I wasn't...
Gouther whispered to his sword at his side.
I know agreement.
He set the broken sword next to the dead magic user and searched his body. He found a small coin pouch with 2 gold and some garlic buds. He hoped the halfling could grow them, and they can have fresh garlic in Terrasburg. Bosimus, Fallon, and Farnard were arguing about something, so Gouther thought he could help by checking out the other hallway. You're going to oil me twice when we get back home.
Fine, can you just drop it?
Gouther came to the end of the hall. There was a lone doorway. He reached out to open it when his name was called. Pulling his hand back, he rushed off to join the rest of the party. The stall had returned and everyone was waiting for Gouther. Brave lad, he gave Gouther a pat on his back. What'd you find down there? One more time, he cut out.
Oh. It is an empty hallway with a single door at the end.
Alright, I found a few doors and more hallways. I vote we should go that way since it should be the easiest way to not get lost heading back. His dog crossed his arm and glared at Fallon. Alright, we got ourselves some options. Where does everyone want to go? Farnard and Bosimus stayed quiet and looked to Gouther.
I don't mind heading back the way I came,
he said.
There was only one door.
With that, the party ventured off into the dark stone hallways of Quasquaton. The walls retained the same dark-hewn stone as the rest of the complex, its blackened walls reflecting the torchlight dimly and showing the glossy dampness to the place. The group stopped in front of the door Gouther noticed. Fallon smiled at Bosimus and moved out of her way. She inspected the lock and pressed her ear against the door. It's clear. She gingerly opened the door and that led into another hallway. The middle on the right-hand side is another door. Bosimus sauntered over and inspected the door, pressed her ear against it, gave it a slight push and opened it. This one's good as well. The party passed through and paused at a 3-way intersection. 2 hallways lead down further west and east, while the path in front followed a hallway that opened into an odd room. They could barely make out what was in there from the door.
Is that a mushroom?
The party slowly wandered down the middle hallway in amazement at the sight they beheld. A massive L-shaped garden, or what was supposed to be a garden, It had been overran by mushrooms that seemed to have grown into monstrous sizes. There is a recessed area in the middle of each wing that looked to have held water, but it's drained. Something's moving. Estelle pointed into the forest of mushrooms. He drew his dagger and deftly threw it down the hallway. Its blade glinted in the torchlight. It hit its mark into the dome of a large morel the size of a man. Spores shot out of the mushroom. The powder glimmered like stars as it fell back down. That doesn't look good. Hey mate, you have that big bolt with you. Go up there and poke it. See if it's done shooting out spores. And get my dagger back too.
Why am I gonna do it?
Because you have the 10-foot pole. Arthur gingerly walked up to the room of mushrooms. He weakly looked back and poked at the closest mushroom he could with a stick. It shot up a mist of spores and slightly deflated. Arthur got a better look at the room. There seemed to be dried fountains near the end of each wing. He thought he saw something move over the mushroom cap. Paula moved next to him and gave him a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Is that a morel? He grabbed up a mushroom the size of his head, dusted it off, and took a small nibble, giving it an approval nod. I didn't know these grew this big. Come to think of it, sort of recognize most of what... Oh yeah, don't eat that one. You'll be indisposed for a good week. He pointed to a giant fly egg growing. What about the dust that... Oh, that's you.
What about the dust that comes off them?
Estelle inspected the mushroom Fallon was holding intently. Fallon rubbed some of the morel and put it in his mouth to taste it. What are you doing? That could be poisonous. I swear you're going to get yourself killed. They're mostly harmless. Just don't eat more than a few of them. The spores are just dust. It's not going to hurt you, but it makes you cough. It does make it hard to see. Might be a bit slippery to fight in here, too. The elves both paused for a moment and drew their bows. Gowther looked confused, and Bosimus and Farned followed suit by readying their weapons. How many? I count 4, no 5, and some weird blobby things. Get the mage behind you and move back a bit. Bozo, Farn, come up here with me and guard our sides. What do you see? Everyone moved into their positions as Fallon suggested. I'm not sure yet. They're big, about 3 feet. It's hard to tell. Might be nothing, but it's better to be safe. He took aim. Fallon followed suit. Gowther moved between the two with a rock and sling ready.
I'll hit this one there. I'm kind of good with the sling.
And with that comment, the young magic user loosed his stone and shot through the carapace armor of the 3-foot centipede. Got one. Oh, sorry.
Got one.
He gave a triumphant thumbs up. You just got lucky. They're moving in, Fallon. Stall drew back their bow when the string snapped, rendering it useless. The arrow... When I was watching this, it was so bad. I don't know if you remember. Because, they were, getting critical failures, on every damn roll.
It was a bit of an interesting fight.
Yes.
Sure.
The arrow fell and snapped into the fungi in front of him, causing a cloud of spores to shoot up. He swore and waved his hands in front of his face to clear the air. Damn it! He swore and retreated to the back to restring his bow. Problems? Fallon said with a chuckle and unloosed his sheath. It flew wide and missed the target. Huh. Looks like they're going to be more difficult than I thought. With one of their own destroyed, the centipedes swarmed the party. Great job, Bosimus sarcastically quipped while she moved into position. How can a magic user with a sling outshoot 2 elves with a bow? Both Estelle and Fallon shot her a glare. Look out! One of the centipedes locked onto Fallon, clawed up his chest and sank his teeth into his throat. The homeless-looking elf let out a wet gurgle and fell, lifeless. The centipede got a critical hit, and then it rolled a 6 damage. Just completely one-shotted him, sorry. No! Farned cried out. He dodged the snapping jaws of the one attacking him. I told him, Estelle shouted, his voice in a panic, and drew his repaired bow. Watch out for their... Krago shouted and let out a cry. Yeah, their teeth go right through armor! Krago's face turned white, looking down at his wound. I'm not feeling
Krago,
so
man.
good. He leaned up against the black-hewn walls, his face dripping with sweat. Really? She chided as she sidestepped an attack. You're the last person to be able to get poisoned by these, Mr. Rockborn. The dwarf let loose the contents of his stomach onto the lichen-covered floor. You made me puke up miel! Krago gave the centipede a guttural growl. Using his massive two-handed sword, he skewered the creature into the ground, pinning it. He lashed its mandibles frantically about when Krago snatched it by its head. I'll show you how to bite something! Krago bit into the centipede, tore off its head, spitting out the eye core. That's how you bite something! He screamed at the lifeless body, spat on its corpse, and retrieved his weapon. Oh, there you go.
Magic missile!
A light blue glowing arrow formed in his hand, and launched itself into the giant centipede that just killed Fallon, splitting its 3-foot body almost in two. We need to get him back to Terrasburg. We might be able to help him there. There were 2 centipedes left. The Stall loosed an arrow from his bow again, and the other one slithering between the mushroom stalks and missed, sending up a cloud of spores that obscured the approaching monster. Farned swung his mace at the one attacking him, but missed. He coughed and stumbled back a half step, from the face full of spores his mace ejected from the ground. Bosimus threw her dagger, pitting the head of the attacking centipede into the ground, but caused more spores to erupt. Thanks. She just winked at him. Not like the elves are useful. She shot Estelle a glare. The last centipede retreated into the mushroom forest. Everyone watched for its movement and stood guard. It showed itself right on top of the giant fly agate. Its chitlin segments glistened from the dim torchlight. Well, Deadeye, Bosimus chided Estelle. Think you can hit the last one? Estelle glared at her, drew his bow and notched an arrow, took careful aim and unloosed his arrow. The centipede moved from its spot just as the arrow would have met its target, passing through empty air. Bosimus let out a cackle and held her sides, laughing. Oh, my hero! She shoved him aside and moved to a defensive posture, waiting for the attack. Barnett slammed his shoulder against Estelle as he rushed past him. Oh, I'm sorry. His words dripped with sarcasm. The two moved in front of their poisoned comrades. The dwarf looked even sicker. You're an idiot, you know, she shouted behind her to Krago. It poisoned you, so you bit it! Krago slid down to the ground and heaved. Nothing came out. Just leave me. I'll just slow you down. It's my time. I just wish I had an ale to wash that awful taste out of me mouth. He grabbed his stomach. The pissed off centipede scurried to attack the group. Stand back! Marna gave a mighty bellow and unleashed his mighty mace. The older cleric's footing slipped with the moss-covered surface. He slipped and fell, crashing into a pile of white-cap mushrooms that ejected more spores. Ah, blasted mushrooms! Do something! Bosimus screamed at Estelle, raised his bow and fired an arrow. It missed, slamming into the same mushroom patch as Farned and blasting his face with more spores. He gagged, sputtered, wiping it away from his eyes. Something else! You have a sword? Use it! Yeah, you're all useless. Bosimus pulled out her dagger and rushed forward and leapt on top of the 3-foot centipede, dodging its venomous mandibles and thrusting her daggers down with all of her might into a screaming fury. Tink! She got a perfect hit. She felt it connect. Bosimus grimaced, realizing that she didn't put enough force behind the blow. She was more apt to the skilling of things, not to the stabbing of them. Yalthar launched the stone from his sling, but the centipede had crawled onto Farned's face, the stone sinking into a brain morel. The giant centipede bit into Farned's scapula and his shoulder. He cried out in agony as 6-inch-long mandibles tore into his flesh. Ah! He staggered away after the centipede released him and retreated. He waved away help, clutching his shoulder. I'm okay, I can still fight. It's just one damn centipede. They don't get this big! Bozoma screamed as the centipede moved to attack her, crawling up her leg. She held back its head, pushing away the biting mandible when an arrow slid between the armored chitlin plates and through its neck. It thrashed about momentarily, and all of its many legs became slack. Now that's how it's taken care of. Estelle said smugly as Bozoma dropped the centipede corpse and helped farn it up. She brazenly strode up to Estelle and slapped him. He held a stinging shriek and shot. I counted 5 arrows to kill one goddamn bug. Estelle sheepishly looked away. I think Gowther is the real hero here. He got more kills than you. Gowther just blushed and mumbled as Bozoma gave him a kiss on the cheek. Come buy me a drink later.
Lol.
The party regrouped and assessed their situation. So, our healer is almost dead, our party leader is dead, our dwarf is poisoned, and our mage casts his one and only spell. Estelle assessed the situation with his arms crossed. Nobody wanted to venture further into the mushroom garden. This wouldn't be the case if our marksman could actually fire a damn bow. Bozoma snapped and she gave Krago a sip from her wineskin. Think you can make it out of here? He nodded and steadied himself, resting his weight on his greatsword. I'll be slow, but I can move. He winced to steady himself, but nodded approvingly. Let's make our way back. The job was to go in and check it out. We did that. The place is overgrown with fungus and practically deserted. Everyone stood over Fallon's pale, cold, lifeless body. There wasn't much blood, as the poison seemed to have been injected directly into his artery. I hope it was... Oh, there you go.
I hope it was quick. I think we're supposed to bring back anyone who dies, right?
Fine. Now let's pick up the idiot I had warned, multiple times I might add, that he's going to get himself killed. Normally I'd say check his pockets, but the smell alone from that unwashed armor, I don't know who is going to carry him to the portal. I'm not doing it. I think Gowther and I can manage. Barnett groaned and limped over to get Fallon's lifeless corpse while uttering prayers under his breath. Come on, boy, grab an ankle, not like you can make him much deader. Gowther had a big grin on his face as he tried to hold back a laugh. What? Estelle snapped as he peeked around the corner of the hallway, looking for other surprises. Oh, that should be your line, actually. Go ahead and do that one.
Ah. It's just...
Alright, let me fix that.
Okay.
Gowther. Gowther snickered.
I'm just glad you memorized the floating disc spell is all. Looks like it did come in handy.
Bozoma burst out laughing. Barnett let out a sigh of relief and dropped the ankle. Oh, thank you, my Reverend One, for your major blessing. Estelle's glare was daggers to Gowther. He stomped forward and invoked the spell. A slight shimmer warped the air about the size of a small shield. Gowther and Bozoma loaded Barnett's corpse onto the disc. His body didn't quite fit, so his feet dragged behind as the party limped slowly through the empty hallways, unimpeded by any new encounter. Everyone was on edge, and the realization of what happened slowly sank in for everyone. What was supposed to be an easy task, with just one room explored, they learned how deadly Quasquatin is. They walked in grim silence, reflecting on what they had learned, and waited for the portal to open and return to Ard'Vanwa to lick their wounds and mourn their losses. They're weak. We should attack now, a barbarian said from the shadows. Another crouched, weapons ready. No. Didn't you hear? They were sent here. Someone knows about this place. We were told everyone died in the great battle. It looks like they were wrong. Do you think Rogan was resurrected or that cursed mage? I've heard stories that the gods can do that. Anything's possible. We need to find what we came here for. The barbarian leaders whispered and motioned the rest of his party down the opposite hallway. Erin took a sip of her tea and listened to the report. Mistress Melissa sat in the chair in the back corner and listened wordlessly at their account. Giant centipedes. The thought sent her skin crawling. 3 feet long. The ones I've encountered in Mystaria when I'm someplace that would require me to encounter these things a lot. They're usually only about a foot. And if you get bit, it just stings you and you get sick a few days. Possibly die from the illness.
Oh, yeah. It ripped Darren's throat out.
Well, Bozma's counter-tapping her forehead. I guess it's bigger because it's eating giant magical mushrooms. So it will probably be more fatal. She announced each word to Gowther. Erin calmly took another sip and waited for the bickering to quell. She had a brief smile as the situation felt quite nostalgic at her old job. She looked at Melissa, who just nodded. And how many were there? 5, everyone said. They were clearly agitated, as they should be. She kept them in her office for about 4 hours, grilling them about what exactly happened and what produced such tragic results. She was furious, but she felt she got everything she needed from the group. It's clear the place is far more dangerous than anyone predicted. She set her cup of tea down and stood up and walked around her desk, resting on it and crossed her arms. I want to apologize for keeping you here this long. I hope you understand that I need to know exactly what happened, not speculation or big fish stories. Erin glanced at Estelle. You said they were 3 feet. Fine. I'll record that in the record. You say there were 5 of them. I'll believe you. I wasn't there, so I have to trust your integrity to relay information to me. Information that will protect and save the lives of more people who are going to join this guild and follow after you. This is not about you. This is about us. This is about what we are going to build here. Estelle scoffed. Erin slammed her fist on her desk, echoing through the small, cluttered office. I am an infant compared to you, Erin screamed at Estelle. You're an elf, and I could have used better judgment than you. Estelle's glare burned a hole into her carpet. He wouldn't even look her in the eye. What about Fallen? Estelle's fist clenched in rage. Erin took a deep breath and chastised herself for losing her temper. We were lucky. The city council has a policy. Calmed her tone of voice. Estelle had taken enough of a verbal beat. It's not one that's well known, but it's strictly enforced and quite ruthlessly. Erin set out 3 scrolls. They were plain looking with a red seal. Ruthie and Primrose came into the office and she passed one to Primrose. Take this to Durham. They both nodded and headed out. That was a resurrection scroll. She paused and let it sink in what she was showing them. And now there are only 2 left in the entire city.
Why can't you just cram it into a book?
You can't. Cleric scrolls are different. They're divine inspiration. They're the will of the divine spirit channeled The will of the divine spirit channeled is transfixed upon the vellum and are blessed. Merely reading the words aloud will render the writing inert, and they vanish from the pages, incinerating the scroll with it. It's a contract, a promise between you and your patron that can be saved for later use due to the limited capacities of the human body. Due to the limited capacities the human body can contain and channel the divine energies. Very good. Erin gave a slow and condescending clap. Now explain why we only have 2 of these in the city when we have a massive church full of clerics who can make scrolls. I don't need to fix that. Farned stammered and sighed. His shoulders slumped. Everyone in the office looked at him confused. The clerics are in a terrible state. No one can cast a blessing given to us beyond the first ranking of spells. And why is that? We're cut off from our patrons. Ard'Vanwa is beyond any connection to divinity we know. It's only through collective efforts across multiple faiths were we able to pool enough divine energy to send out a call for help to anyone who can hear us. And we were granted asylum by an unknown patron. Barnard said shamefully. My faith is still to the great church, but for us to live, we clerics did the greatest sacrifice for the greater good.
Wait. You're from Mystara. What rank did you cause before you came here?
I was a leader of quite high ranking that had been. I was a leader of the high ranking. This has been a humbling experience, and I reflected on my past injustices I let slide. He smiled at the young magic user. I used to think this was a curse, but now I can see my patron put me where I needed to be. Have you attempted to make contact with your patron since you went through with us? He shook his head no. I have not tried. We clerics don't know much about the patron who grants us prayers. He or she rarely speaks at all. It could be that we're so far removed from our world that we can't hear, but some say to be wary. We agree to maintain our connection with the Quiet One. We did promise allegiance, and it would be quiet against most of our caveats to go back on an oath, just because we got to step outside for a few minutes. But the Quiet One requires no changes in worship or tithes or offerings. Without the Quiet One's interventions, we would have died out a long time ago. So all the clerics worship the Quiet One, but continue going about preaching about their old deity? Bosimus chuckled with a head shake. Wow, I can't even begin to unpack that. Aren't there chaos worshippers in the Church of Worship? It's a unique and unheard of situation, but everyone agrees it was the only chance we had. The ground is tainted, and we have to purify every meal we eat. That puts all of us to exhaustion. The best of us can cast 2 miracles a day before having to go back to devotions and be blessed again. He smiled. I'm not sure if that means that we're in their favor or if their connection with us grows stronger. This is uncommon knowledge. It's not a secret, just something not talked about to newer arrivals. No one wants to think about how the clerics in the farmlands are casting purified food en masse to ensure the produce that comes into these walls are safe to eat. Barnard, Bosimus, Krago, I thank you for your assistance. I'll meet with each of you for compensation. Bosimus held out her wrist, expecting to be shackled. That's not needed. I worked out an arrangement with the council this afternoon. You're an explorer now. What? She gave Varen a suspicious look. You work for me. Your cot's upstairs. Get some rest. Bosimus grumbled and exited Aaron's office, along with Krago and Barnard. Well, now that that's over with, let's wrap this up. She grabbed a sheet from her desk. Now, bear with me, I'm still working out how to do this. The items recovered from the first excursion are a warhammer from a dwarven corpse, a leather pouch and 2 gold pieces from a dead mage, a handful of garlic buds from the said dead mage, a leather pouch with 5 gold pieces, and a bloody leather belt with a dagger and sheath. Aaron looked up at his stall. Really? We have daggers here, and belts. Fallen thought it... Oh, there you go.
Who thought it was a nice belt?
One more time.
Paul thought it was a nice belt.
Galther interjected and sheepishly finished his thought, but realized too late the implications.
Then Bosimus said she would fence it for him.
Aaron pinched the bridge of her nose. Do I really need to use that scroll? She whispered to herself. Do I really need to? No one will miss him, and my nightmares of Huckleberry Elf will be over. She paced back and forth for a moment and just let out a sigh. Just Keep what you found for now or give it to Lonnie. I'm sure I'm still working on the management system and record keepings. Aaron paced her office and stared at the seated explorers. Go ahead and go. I've kept you long enough. As they left the office, Lonnie came into view. Lonnie, Aaron shouted over the departing explorers. Record 5 giant centipedes, check the report to classify it. Also award them 10 explorer points on their records. Lonnie gave her a nod and spoke with 2 of them a moment and shut her office door. She flopped on her chair, buried her face in her hands, and screamed. Melissa rubbed her back, trying to soothe her. You told me it was safe! She snapped and jammed her finger in Melissa's face. Fallen died from a 3-foot centipede. It's terrible what happened to the garden. She seemed more distraught over the state of her garden than the fact that somebody died. It was so beautiful and majestic. Zelagar planted so many exotic plants there, and Rogan had lush fountains made. It was a place to relax and read. Aaron glared at her. Fallon will be okay. We were ready for this. Aaron continued to glare at Melissa. There was a soft knock at the door, and Gowther poked his head in.
Ma'am, sorry to barge in.
I kind of gave you a bit of a monologue since you've been helping out so much.
Oh. I just wanted to ask how Eldon was. He wasn't in the meeting.
Eldon's fine. Thank you for asking about him. He's a bit shaken up, but he might bounce back.
Do you know what happened? He was here and then just gone.
Get some rest. We'll talk about it before the next expedition.
Oh.
Gowther's face dropped.
The next one.
Gowther, he looked up. You did a great job today. Don't forget that. They all would be dead if you weren't there. Look, I'm not trying to be hard, but in a way, I am. Tell him about the name. Melissa giggled and nudged Aaron. What do you call what you just did?
I'm not sure.
Aaron waited for him to come in. He stepped in, shut the door, and leaned against it. Adventuring? She offered. Gowther thought for a moment and nodded. Would you call yourself an adventurer?
After all that, yeah, I would say it was an adventure.
Gowther chuckled. Aaron's smiling face went stone neutral. We are not adventurers. She spoke flatly and air quoted. Adventuring. To engage in hazardous and exciting activities, especially the exploration of unknown territory. Exploring, traveling in or through an unfamiliar country or area in order to learn about or familiarize oneself with it, he continued. That is why I chose this name. If everyone calls themselves an adventurer, it gives them an ideal to strive for, to be larger than life, to draw attention to themselves, and to inject in political affairs. There are many reasons I wish to keep our guild as far away from that association as possible. And it's kind of hard to do when the first mission is documented as looting dead bodies and leaving them there, not even trying to identify who they are, give them a burial, and succumbing to mutant centipedes after going into one room. But you know who can come back from such a shit show? She quipped with a smile. An explorer. Because they are calm-headed and will abide by a little bit more tact and grace.
Yeah, I think I get the idea.
Names are important. Ideals are important. And how you present them to the worlds we are going to be connecting to are important, she continued. We are guests to Mistar. We need to establish guidelines. Anyway, you can go see Eldon at the Barefoot Inn and Pie Factory. He could use some company. Gowther nodded and left Aaron and Melissa alone again. Aaron's mind raced with ideas. She grabbed a parchment and started scribbling. She'll need to talk to the researchers about this. Melissa looked over her shoulder and curiously cocked an eyebrow. Interesting.
Oh,
hello. The tavern music isn't working.
I fell asleep a bit too long.
Well, we kind of assumed that was going to happen, so we've been going over the visual novel. We're almost done with it. So I have a small side mission if you're still up for playing.
I need to have lunch after this. Sorry, I'm fucking starving.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost
I'm
done.
actually surprised I didn't wake up. I had 15 alarms.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had people come wake me up around like half an hour before you send that last ping.
Mm-hmm.
My alarms failed. The humans failed. Nothing worked.
You were destined to sleep.
Yep. We'll just
Yes,
start calling you
sleeping is my
Snorlax.
destiny.
Well, if you you can, we're at the last scene of the visual novel. If you want to take a look and see how it's looking, we're almost done, Guthrie. If you need to get
Yeah,
going
I
too.
already joined for the last and so the last 5 minutes of the visual novel you were doing.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, just one. Sorry, just one thing, Kaiju.
Yep.
It's not. It's supposed to be Direwood, not Darkwood.
Oh, what is it supposed to be?
Well, you know, I'll just spell it. I'll just spell it out in chat. Actually,
Okay.
my original name was supposed to be this. Uh, but I have let I the first the I and the I already let go because that's been a while. But it's not Darkwood. It's Direwood. Yeah, I just wanted to. Oh yeah. So yeah. Thanks. By the way, it's honestly like this is pretty damn cool. I can see that you put quite a lot of effort in this. Mm.
Then,
Right.
I like that idea because okay, I'm gonna go kite for you to have fun. Can't wait to see how this goes. See.
Right. Well, how much is left of this, by the way? Is it going to be okay? Yeah, shitty adventure. But it is a good exploration. No one seems to understand that we're all trying to do our best. And that was not our best. I want to go back and do it right. We know it's dangerous. We know to be on guard now. We got one chance and that was it. But we heard the clerics and we know something needs to be done. What about Eldon? Yeah, did he tell you that he was outside the walls? He had to run back here to send Gregor to replace him. Damn it, he was displaced a second time. Think about it. Mm. Yeah, okay. Okay. Hmm? Yeah, it's honestly like, yeah, other than like bits of misspellings here and there and stuff like that, it's mostly it's pretty good, to be honest. I mean, it depends. I don't actually know like what's like the, you know, like how big the audience for this stuff is, but could be. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Oh, so it's certainly a cool idea. Well, thanks. But yeah, I think we're just gonna go now because I need to eat something. Oh, well, all right. I don't really think I did my best. Granted that I'm not really I wasn't exactly prepared to do this, but all right. Yeah, well, I'll talk to you later then. All right. All right. Well, bye then.